Hello, everybody. I'm Tommy, and you're on the boat. Hey, Pepperhead, good to see you. Ashley G, what's happening? Hey, Mike Bragg. Hey, Cheryl Niles. Jane Aldrich is here. I'm betting that your sister's here as well. Barbara, hope you're here. Cheryl Niles, I'm glad you're here. So here's the deal, folks. Watch him now, because he's a fairly dangerous man. So I've been working on a couple of different stories, and today was one of those days where I probably could have scrapped it all because I was having some serious problems with all of my technology. It was fairly ugly. Lisa Trimble, good to have you here, Lisa. Glad that you are here. And this is one of those episodes where, you know, when you put on a tinfoil hat of any kind, the term conspiracy theorist is a pejorative always. Susie, good to see you. Wes Lightburn, how are you? Archie's mom is here. Glad you're here. This is an insult every time somebody says it. Is that Canito Warrior? Good to have you here. Glad that you are here. You're on time. Look at you. Carolina, Canada. What's happening? So this is a pejorative every time it's used. It's not used as a compliment, right? It's an insult. Captain Capsaicin, good to see you. Whitby Island hippie girl. What's happening? So I have a struggle with this, because most of the conspiracy theories of my generation have turned out to be true. Yet they will continually talk about conspiracy theories as if you don a tinfoil hat, and I say that, of course, jokingly, but if you're somebody that asks questions, then you're a nut, and they tie you to things like QAnon. Look at that, 2 minutes in, just got demonetized with one word. Audrey in Denver, good to see you. So, hey, Kirsten Melinda, there you are. Good to have you here. The Lone Wrench. That's all right, though. She does the work of 14, so not that big a deal. They use it as a pejorative, and all of a sudden you're going to be insulted because you have the guts to say, hey, this doesn't make any sense. So I talked a little bit last night when we did the I Got Nothing to Talk About show, and I talked about whether or not people would be cool with me putting on the tinfoil hat. And most people said, yeah, do it, man. We want to talk about some of these things. So I wanted to start with one that there is absolutely no way in hell that you can look at this case and say, this happened the way they said it did. In fact, it is so disgustingly obvious that for me, it was the catalyst of all other conspiracy theories. The John F. Kennedy assassination is a difficult case because every once in a while, an expert will go up to an elevated platform and they will try to recreate getting off the same number of shots in the same period of time. And if the person's got the skill, they pull it off. Now, you throw in the magic bullet, you throw in all these other things that make you start guessing, but it's in almost every conspiracy theory, there is somebody articulate who can say, this is why that doesn't fit the narrative. Here's why this actually is a lone gunman. And you have to sit there and go, I mean, they make a decent argument, right? And usually it's critical thinking. So we're going to skip that one because they're going to be debating it until the end of time. But what I find really funny is that and not funny, haha. Hey, Toby, how are you? I don't find it funny as in haha, but I find it ironic that the absolute Mac Daddy of BS stories that have been told to the people of the United States is an event that happened on June 6th, 1968 at 12:15. This was at the Ambassador Hotel where John F. Kennedy's brother, Robert Kennedy, had just won the Kevin Hawthorne, Lakeland, Florida. Good to see you, my brother. He had just won the Democratic primary for California. Kind of a big state to win, right? If you pull this state off, that's kind of a big deal. There's an awful lot of juice behind that. If you go back a little bit, Lyndon Baines Johnson dropped out of the race, kind of opening the door for RFK to come in. But RFK did some stuff that may have led to his demise. This is theory, and I'll tell you when something is theory. But he said he didn't believe the Warrens Commission report, and that if he became president, he wanted to reopen the investigation into the murder of his brother. He also said, I'm going to end the Vietnam War. These are two things that a lot of intelligent people believe may have led to his death, because the military-industrial complex and the Central Intelligence Agency wanted Vietnam to continue. And they certainly didn't want to take another look at the assassination of John F. Kennedy, because that one just stinks, right? Not as bad as this one, folks. So the official narrative is that at 12:15 a.m., shots fired at the Ambassador Hotel, in the pantry. So this is the area behind most of the ballrooms where they could put out food, get food prepared to put out. And a gentleman by the name of Sirhan, this was a Palestinian of Jordanian birth who emigrated to the United States at the age of 12 and got into the equestrian racket. He started working at a horse track, one owned by a mobster, just a little sidetrack, but it was owned by a gangster. They put him on a horse and said that they were going to try to teach him to be a jockey. They didn't put him on a nag. They put him on a thoroughbred, which threw him on the first time he went around the track. Injured his head, went into the hospital. He says he was there for about 3 months. The hospital says he was there for an hour and a half. That's kind of odd, right? That's kind of odd. But again, this proves nothing, right? Critical thinking, hey, man, maybe this guy's just insane, right? Maybe Sirhan just isn't quite right. But there was a journalist named Stanislav Purinsky. He tape recorded what happened back there. He was trying to ask the presidential candidate a question, and he had a tape recorder on. And what that tape recorder picked up would be debated for a very long time until years later when somebody with some heavy-duty technology that didn't exist in the 60s took it apart and removed all of the other sound and just isolated the sounds of the gunshot. But here's the thing. RFK was killed with a Inver and Johnson 22. Now, if you guys know anything about 22s, it's about the smallest caliber that you can get your hands on, right? They don't make a smaller bullet that actually fires out of a weapon with gunpowder. That's about the smallest that you can get commercially. It's often used by assassins because if it gets into your head, it will not penetrate all the way to the other side. So it tends to go around in circles and fry your brain. It also makes it a lot more difficult to get a look at the ballistics, because if the bullet is ricocheting around in there, it's not going to be in great shape for the striations and things of that nature to be found on the bullet. If you're not familiar with striations, as a bullet goes out of a barrel, there is rifling that makes the bullet spin like this, right? That leaves marks on a bullet, and you can trace that to a particular gun. Now, it's a lot easier to do today because the people that manufacture guns actually make it a lot easier to do. They change things inside the gun so that it is a much easier process. It was not that way in the 60s. However, here's where it starts getting kind of weird. That gun holds 8 bullets, but there were people in there that said it sounded like a machine gun going off. There are people that said they counted 13 or more shots out of a gun that only held 8 bullets. This obviously is a problem, right? The 6.5 is a little bit, there's actually a 5.9, right? A millimeter gun, which is even smaller. Weapons that are usually only end up in the hands of people like the Mossad, people like the Central Intelligence Agency. They're designed to go through flak jackets. They're designed to do things that only an assassin's bullet should do. But for readily available, you can go down to Walmart and buy it. You're not going to get a lot smaller than the deuce normally. Hello, Barbara Waite. Good to see you. So here's where the problem starts. So now you start going, well, there's more bullets. Go back to JFK. Go back to any other assassination that we've had in the U.S. One of the problems we have across the board is that nobody believes the autopsies. Take a look at what's happening right now with Charlie Kirk. You have to suspend disbelief and say, okay, well, maybe the guy doing the autopsies is a solid cat, right? But in the case of John F. Kennedy, the autopsy was an abortion, right? All of the things about that autopsy stunk. And the more people that looked at it went, oh, I don't know, man. Like, these pictures are really dark. They claim that this shot came from here. There are pieces of skull missing. It's a very unusual case, and it happens a lot. When RFK got shot, the man who took the job for having to do the autopsy was a coroner by the name of Namaguchi. This gentleman, he was a Japanese American and a very prominent, at the time, probably one of the most famous people in the country for doing autopsies. He was considered the coroner to the stars because he was in that part of the country and he worked on a lot of famous people that passed away. However, this cat was smart enough to go, you know what? I'm not going to have people looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life telling me I screwed this up. So he did something very unusual. He invited everybody and their brother to come to the autopsy. And by that, I mean they had an entire neurological surgical team that came in and witnessed this. He then asked for the heads of the military branches and the people that do the autopsy for them to also come in and witness this. There were a stink load of people at this autopsy. In fact, it has been dubbed the perfect autopsy. He ended up writing a book by that title at a later date. The perfect autopsy, because there was no room for anyone to go, hey, wait a sec. There were all of these witnesses. So if the guy said something that was out of line, everybody goes, hey, no, that doesn't make sense. What are you doing? These are all trained professionals in this line of work. Very unusual, right? Put a 2 in the chat if you find that to be slightly genius, because I sure as hell do. It also sounds like somebody that's a stand-up cat, right? Like maybe this dude's an American. Maybe this dude really wants the truth to come out instead of BS going all over the place, right? So all of these people are in there watching the autopsy. And when the autopsy results come back, there's some really disturbing stuff in this autopsy. So let me tell you a little bit about the conspiracy theory, okay? Normally, we look at the shooter in the book suppository in Dallas, right, on Dealey Plaza. And there are all of these suspension of disbelief where you have to go, okay, maybe he got the shots off and nobody really saw it. There's a picture allegedly of a barrel coming out a window, but you really don't know what's happening. And people said they heard the shots from one side. People said 77 witnesses to the RFK assassination said the exact same thing. 77 of them. None of the stories varied by much. Maybe details about who was standing exactly behind who, but there are certain facts that 77 individual people agreed on. One of those was that Sirhan pulled his gun out and pointed it at RFK. He was standing in front of him. Now, some people put it at 8 feet. That's about the longest. One person put it at 2 feet. That's the closest. But most said between 3 to 6 feet standing in front of him. Hello, Kim. So 3 to 6 feet standing in front of him, drawing down on him with a 22, right? A 22 that holds 8 bullets. Now, according to the official narrative, he shot RFK 3 times. All of his other bullets hit other people, right? So, he hit everybody. He hit all of the people there. The labor, the guy from labor was there. One of the labor secretaries was with him. He got shot in the head. There were some press people that got shot. The only one that died was Kennedy. Everyone else's life was able to be saved. There was mayhem. People were screaming. It was absolutely out of control. Here's the problem. The autopsy report with photographs and everything else, and I spent the last 6 hours going over this autopsy report because I knew this story, but now I live in an age, like I read the books on this. I read 2 of them while I was in prison. But now I live in an age where I can just go pull up that autopsy result. That autopsy report. I want to read it. There's something called stippling, right? It's when you shoot a gun so close to somebody that the powder that comes out the end of the gun, right? Because inside a gun, you have a cartridge. It's a metal cartridge. It's locked in place. And when the firing pin hits the primer, fulminate of mercury ignites, and all of that powder inside the casing ignites. And there's nowhere for it to go, right? So basically airtight in there. So all of that pressure forces the bullet out, which spirals down the barrel. But all of that powder is going to come out behind it. And if you're close enough to the individual, you're going to get stippling, or sometimes they call it tattooing. It is it looks like somebody took a black magic marker and just put a million dots all over you, where that powder burn comes in contact with your skin. Sirhan is standing 3 to 6 feet in front of him. You're not going to get any kind of powder burns at 3 to 6 feet. In fact, it takes about 1 to 3 inches or contact if you're holding it up against somebody. But it has to be 1 to 3 inches in order for that stippling and that burning to happen. And this happened to RFK, but it didn't happen here. It happened right here behind his ear. That was the death shot behind his ear. 77 witnesses say the man that shot him is 6 feet in front of him, but he got shot behind the ear. He also got shot in the back, 3 shots to his back. One went through the armpit and one ended up in the head, which just went around in circles. And the other actually went through the shoulder pad on his jacket. So although they call it a contact, it didn't do a number. And that's the 4th shot, actually. The 3rd shot ended up, I think, in his shoulder blade. But all of them, no one argues. This entire room full of people doing a freaking autopsy all agree. The photographs are still in existence, and the back of his ear is just covered in gunpowder. 77 witnesses said that the shooter was 3 to 6 feet in front of him. So how in hell does he get powder burns behind his left ear. Now, some of the people in the autopsy argued about how far away the gun might be. There were several people in there that thought that the gun had made contact with his head when it was fired. Namaguchi said he thought it was between 1 to 2 inches away. Any way you shake it, it ain't 3 to 5 feet. Now, again, someone said they were 2 feet away. Let's call that 1 foot. It's not going to put those kind of stipple marks anywhere on him. This makes absolutely no sense, right? Absolutely no sense. But if that was it, it would suck. But it's not. There are all kinds of tapes in existence that you can get through FOIA. You can go and look them up online very easily and listen to them, where cops are telling witnesses, you didn't see that. That's not what you saw. In particular, all parties involved said that they saw a woman talking to Sirhan Sirhan. Half of them said she was speaking a different language. The other half couldn't hear what was being said. But this person was wearing a polka dot dress. Anyone who said that, they got rid of. They just eliminated the testimony. However, they didn't eliminate the tapes. So you've got operatives in there interrogating these people going, no, listen, if you love RFK, all you're doing at this point is smutting up this man's reputation. You're going to cause all kinds of conspiracy theories. There was no woman in a polka dot dress. Can you imagine somebody telling you you didn't see something? By the way, she wasn't just talking to him. When the shooting was over, she ran out of the room, and other people that weren't in the pantry but were on outside, particularly a married couple, said that as she ran out, she yelled, "We killed him. We killed him." By the time that report came in, and it was written up by a police officer, by the way, and this police officer, till the very last day of his life, said, they changed my report. Because when that finally got into the report, it was written, they killed him. They killed him. Well, that's a hell of a lot different than we killed him, right? It's a hell of a lot different. There are witnesses who said that that woman was also with a man who looked Mexican-American. We'll never know, because they didn't bother to investigate any of this at all. See, there was already a narrative, and the narrative is that this Sirhan cat, he did it. And the beautiful thing is that he was going to get the death penalty, so there wasn't really a whole lot to worry about, right? No problem, no harm, no foul. His case was an absolute joke. The ballistics report on the gun that he fired didn't match the serial number to the gun that he owned. Let me say that one more time. When you look at the ballistics report, the serial number is from a different gun. That's reasonable doubt. You don't have to be an asshat, right? That's reasonable doubt. You didn't test the same gun. Okay, that's a problem, right? And no one's, by the way, this isn't a conspiracy theory. You can read this crap. But the guy that was handling his case, who, by the way, appeared out of nowhere and said, I will be representing him. He wasn't a part of the public defender's office, nothing like that. He just showed up and said, I'm taking this bad boy pro bono. He had also been representing the man who owned the racetrack where Sirhan Sirhan worked prior to his injury. Everyone said he was never the same after that injury, by the way. There are a lot of people that believe that this was a MK Ultra project. Now, again, you go, Tommy, that sounds kind of ridiculous. Well, there's a guy named Dr. William Joseph Bryant. He was a hypnotist, and he worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. Big bastard, too. He was like 300 pounds and change. He was a big dude. And he used to like to brag that part of his experiments, he would hypnotize women and do things to them that they never would have allowed done if he hadn't hypnotized them. Real solid cat. He had a couple of hookers that he visited on a regular basis. And he told them that he programmed Sirhan Sirhan to do what he did. Which is a little unnerving, right? There are also all kinds of other times and places where people have taken credit for this, right? CIA operatives who said, one in particular, a gentleman said, you know what? I was in Dallas when we got that mother effer. And I was in Los Angeles when we got his, I believe he called him a you-know-what sucker of a little brother. If I'm misquoting that, I'm not misquoting it by much. It was very virulent and ugly. And this kind of crap has continued throughout this entire process. However, no one wants to reopen this case. Funny thing, too. Sirhan Sirhan, the guy that did this, mountains of evidence that there's no way his gun could have killed this guy. Now, I'm not saying he didn't fire a gun. He did. Most assuredly, he did. But there were more than 8 shots. And this isn't just... Now, years later, like I said, I believe it was in 2000 and... Let me see. I got it written down here. They did a 2000 and... I believe 7. Philip Van Praag, an audio expert, took apart all of the audio and said, yep, 13 shots. Some of them are so close together that it would be impossible to fire from a revolver. A revolver is an unusual gun because when you fire the gun, the cylinder has to move about 1/4 of an inch so that it's seated for the next shot. And then when you pull the trigger, the hammer has to go all the way back again and all the way forward. So you can only squeeze them off at about, a specific rate. You can't make it go any faster than that. But when you listen to the audio, you hear, bah, 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 bah. Very wrong, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense. The first 2 shots are quick as hell. Most people believe they came from Sirhan. They didn't, however, hit Kennedy. And they sure as shit didn't hit him in the back of the head, right? This is a problem. This isn't, we don't get to a point where this is open for debate, but it gets creepier. When the LAPD was doing the investigation on this, they found bullet holes all over the inside of that pantry. There were 2 in a door. There were 2 in a support, a jam between 2 doors. All of these were circled, numbered, photographed, and allegedly the bullets dug out. Now, none of those bullets ever made it into evidence, but it's worse than that. His attorney didn't bring that up. The gangster attorney didn't bring that up at the trial. The second the trial was over, they destroyed those door jams. They destroyed the door, the jam, ceiling tiles, which a bullet ended up in. They destroyed all of it. And their reason for this, it wouldn't fit in a filing cabinet. Put a 2 in the chat if that sounds like BS to you. David, glad you're here. This is BS. And it's BS at a level that makes you wonder how they got away with this. The info's out there, folks. This is not something you got to do 8 years of digging to get to. You can go and just pull up the autopsy on RFK and read where the bullets came in, what angle they came at. A couple of other things that are interesting. The lawyer who worked for the owner of the racetrack, a gangster, that lawyer was in trouble. And he was in trouble because of a case that was open. And it was a case called the Friars Club case. The Friars Club, which is just good old boy get-togethers, guys get drunk, play cards. The gangsters had set up cameras in the ceiling so that they could look at the cards in people's hands. And there were a lot of really famous people coming in there and betting big money at these Friars Club events. It was basically an illegal gambling hall. But the mob was in on it. Now, this lawyer, allegedly, he was under investigation, that's a fact. But what he had done allegedly was he had taken grand jury indictment and given it to the gangster. Let me explain this to you. This is a you're going to jail thing. There are things in the USA that I don't care who you are. You could be the president's kid. There are things that if you do, you're going to prison. That happens to be one of them. It is the ultimate FU to the court system. And if you steal grand jury indictment and hand it over to the enemy, you're going to jail. You may go to prison, but you're getting locked up. You're also getting disbarred. But they dropped the case against him as soon as the trial was over. Probably the same day they destroyed all the evidence that could have shown that there was absolutely a second gunman. And here's the thing. At every other case, we go, well, there might have been a second gunman, but there's no telling who was on the grassy knoll. Some people say it was George Bush, right? There's all of these conspiracy theories, and they're just not their theories. Nobody can prove them. There are things that look bad or whatever. Not this time. This time, there was a security guard whose last name was Caesar, right? And he was standing directly behind Kennedy. This is a very unusual cat, especially to be working as a security guard, right? He worked for Skunk Works. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, allegedly, were the guys that worked on all of the UFO stuff. And they sure as hell worked on the Black Hawk. They worked on all of these top secret things. They're big at Groom Lake. They're big at Area 51. Skunk Works is the top level of clearance you can get on planet Earth. This cat happened to have that clearance, and he worked there. And just pulling a nighttime gig as a security guard to make sure that this guy is safe. He was carrying a .22, same caliber that killed RFK. He pulled it out. He admitted to the LAPD that he fired it. He said he was firing it at Sirhan. They didn't take the gun from him. Put a 2 in the chat if that sounds really effed up to you, because it sure as hell does to me. They did not take the gun. Now, what he said later was, I shot a .38, not a .22. I had a .22. Same manufacturer, by the way. But I sold that 3 months before Kennedy was shot. Turns out that's not the truth. He sold it about a month and a half after Kennedy was shot. And the guy that he sold it to, by the way, they filled out a piece of paper. So this is no like conspiracy thing. He told the guy, listen, be really careful with this gun. It was involved in a shooting. Police know about. Does that seem odd? Does that seem odd? It just keeps getting worse. By the way, it just keeps getting worse. This guy, Caesar, let's say you did shoot somebody running for president who happens to be a president's brother. What do? Normally, I mean, you probably go get a job at Harvard because they seem to celebrate this kind of stuff. But this guy moved to the Philippines. He expatted to the Philippines, where he agreed to meet with RFK. RFK wanted to sit down and talk to him. That would be Junior, because RFK Jr. doesn't think Sirhan shot his father. Not because he's a conspiracy nut. Hey, Florida court reporter, good to see you. Not because he's a conspiracy nut, because he read the friggin' autopsy. And I'm telling you right now, you read this autopsy, you're not going to come away with any other conclusion that he was shot from the back at a distance of 2 inches. 77 witnesses put the shooter 6 feet in front of him. They all agree, every single friggin' one of them. Well, that's a problem, right? That's a problem. So why are we not investigating? Why are we not moving any further in this? Because this is kind of fascinating, right? So Sirhan has been up for parole 17 times. He's done nothing wrong in prison, not a thing. He's just in there doing his time, right? They will not give this cat parole. However, on his 16th attempt, they gave it to him. The state of California said, absolutely, you can get parole. By the way, at that parole hearing was the victim, RFK. His son was there. And so was one of the other people who was in the room at the time that got shot in the head. He was also there because he doesn't think Sirhan did it. And there's a little more evidence that leans to that. For instance, this guy Caesar was wearing a clip-on tie, which most officers wear because it's dangerous to wear a regular tie. A guy can grab it and mess with your neck, right? So they usually wear clip-on ties. He got shot in the back of the head, right? He turned and grabbed the tie off of Caesar on the way down. I'm just telling you, as a guy that's been in a lot of scuffles in his life, he turned in that direction because he knew where the shot came from. That's my humble opinion. And he didn't die till the next day. He was alive while he was in the Ambassador. He was still clinging to life. But when he fell to the ground, the tie fell out of his hand. And there's tons of pictures of Caesar with a tie beforehand, without a tie afterwards. Seems odd to me. Just seems like a nice detail. And again, doesn't prove anything. But all of these things combined start to make things look really, really messed up. So RFK is going to go out to the Philippines and interview this cat that he believes is the shooter that killed his father. And at the last minute, I mean, literally the 12th hour, the guy says to him, by the way, I need $25,000 for this interview. Relatable Reese, good to see you. It's just an extortion gig. And if he had said, I'll give you the 25, he'd asked for 50. He strung him along because he knew he was at the end of his life. I mean, the shooter, not RFK Jr. So all of these files that are in existence, I did a show right around the time that the Epstein files weren't being released. And they came out and said, we're going to release a bunch of stuff on RFK. There have been, they scheduled 3 different dumps. We've had 2 of them. The next one that's coming out is 60,000 documents. And I'm telling you right now, this entire thing, you could get a 6th grader to read this autopsy report and then read the narrative that they claim happened. There's no way it can happen. It's literally impossible. This isn't one of those conspiracy things. It's literally impossible, right? There were so many witnesses to this. It was a dangerous way to kill someone. Now, was Sirhan the one of the shooters? Yeah, he had a gun in his hand. He absolutely had a gun in his hand. And oddly enough, there was an NFL football player in the back who supported RFK's campaign and a decathlon winner. And between the 2 of them and a couple other people, they got the gun down on the table, away from everyone, where Sirhan then continued to fire the weapon and empty it. However, according to the narrative, every shot he fired hit somebody. This is a really, really messed up case. And the only reason that we haven't done anything about it is because the people in America don't know or don't care. Because if everybody in America wrote to their congressperson and said, hey, The RFK shooting is so ridiculously a conspiracy that I'm a little pissed off about it. They would be forced to do something. However, hate Trump, do whatever you do. He's releasing those files. And my guess would be because he's become friends with RFK Jr. Because every president has said, literally, every single president has said, we're going to declassify those files. This one's doing it. They're declassifying all of these files. And we're getting somewhat of a better picture. The crazy thing is this. So the guy that worked at Skunk Works, the shooter, he worked at Lockheed Martin at Skunk Works. So did 4 other people who are considered persons of interest in this case. Seems odd, right? They all worked for Howard Hughes at one time as well. It seems like there's a little cabal of people that were very, very close to Hughes Aviation, that were very, very close to Lockheed Martin. Side note, Skunk Works and Lockheed Martin had a ton of stuff that they did in the Philippines. So you can look this up. I'm not making it up. But allegedly, this is where spies go to die. Right? There's so many contacts over there that people within the government can get them cushy little side jobs or places to live where they don't have to pay rent. So the alleged shooter went and lived out his life in the Philippines, living large in Manila. Life is good. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? It's a beautiful thing. They also said LBJ was involved with this also. You know what? I don't know. I honestly can't find anything that's solid with that. There are a lot of theories out there about who did this, but this dude, Caesar, was standing directly behind him. He lost his tie. He fired a gun that they didn't take. God, help me explain that one. You don't go, hey, I'm going to need that. You may have accidentally shot him in the back of the head trying to get the other guy. That's not what happened, by the way. It isn't. But that could have been a theory. But see, the LAPD, they already made their mind up. In fact, when they got together for the first meeting on the investigation, the first words out of the mouth of the gentleman telling all of these people what they were going to do, he said, there will not be a conspiracy on this. If that's what your boss tells you, I can see why you go into a room and when a girl says, no, there was a woman in a polka dot dress who said, we killed him. Shut up. No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. And I'm not making this up. It's on audio. You can listen to it. He told her, you didn't see that. When you start telling witnesses they didn't see that, you're filthy. You're filthy. So here's my theory, and this is a theory. At the end of JFK's life, he was super disenchanted with what was going on in Vietnam. They paint him today as this hawk that sent 1,200 advisors over to Vietnam. Well, he was bringing them back. He had gotten to a point where he realized that bowing to the military-industrial complex and bowing to the CIA wasn't going to be beneficial to him long-term. And he was not wanting to be the hawk that everybody wanted him to be. And I think that the Central Intelligence Agency, and I think that the powers that be in the United States that run the shit show, I don't mean the president and all those people, forget that. I mean the people running it, right? I think they said, we don't want this dude here. Now, JFK was super pissed off at the CIA because that whole Bay of Pigs fiasco didn't go very well, and it made him get a bunch of egg on his face, right? And then the Cuban Missile Crisis came along. And between JFK and RFK, they stopped a nuclear war. And in the process, did something that doesn't get done in America. They said to the Russians, we want those missiles out of Cuba. And we'll get our missiles away from you. I think we had them in Turkey. If it wasn't Turkey, it was somewhere over there. But we had missiles right on their border, so they wanted missiles right on ours. And they did a give and take. Normally, the United States says, we're bigger than you, and they bitch slap who's ever at the negotiation table. This time they said, this is good for you, it's good for us. Nobody looks like they lost, and everybody's happy. Detente, right? He wanted the end of the nuclear buildup. Now, keep in mind, it went on for another, 30 years almost? You know how much money was made in those 30 years by people like Lockheed Martin, like the people at Skunk Works? So he wanted out. He wanted to get out of all of that military-industrial BS. And they didn't want that. And they were looking at a dynasty, right? Not only was this dude going to get elected, but his brother was going to get elected next. And this wasn't the party they wanted. They wanted to be able to ramp it up in Vietnam. And you know what? After RFK got shot, the next administration went hard to the paint into Vietnam. Everything that they kind of wanted to get out of this, they did. They, in my opinion, eliminated both of these guys because they were a huge threat to the powers that be. Everyone likes to call them Democrats. If you take a look at their policies, you may not think that if you compared it to today. What they did was, at best, wildly centrist, like right in the middle, and probably leaning a little bit more to the conservative. Now, socially, yeah, they wanted an end to racism. That's a beautiful concept, right? Except at the time, people still used the N-word with the hard R. In fact, the guy that shot, in my opinion, RFK, Caesar, was an absolutely unrepentant racist. He also, by the way, was a plumber. I'm not making this up. During the day, he was a plumber. At night, he would go to work with the highest security clearance on planet Earth. And then he got a side job guarding a candidate that was running for president. Put a 3 in the chat if that sounds like BS to you. For real. How many plumbers, and no disrespect to plumbers, I love plumbers. I love any blue collar guy. But how many blue collar guys are also working with top security clearance at Area 51 style projects for skunk works? Does that make any sense? Because I promise you, it doesn't to me. This just stinks. And with those 2 gigs, right? Plumbers make decent money. Certainly, if you're working at Lockheed Martin, you're making really good money. Why the hell was he just getting a gig working there? Well, oddly enough, he was going through a security company that was owned by a former CIA guy with ties to that same racetrack. If you start looking into this, it is, hang with me on this, right? When you say the guy in the book depository had to get off 3 shots, right? One of them is going to be a headshot, and he's got to do it, and I can't remember what it is, 3.5 seconds or 4 seconds or something like that, really fast. You go, okay, that could happen. But as you add each layer of BS to it, you start going, now the probabilities are going through the roof, right? If you just look at like at game theory or whatever, each time you put another variable in that makes no sense, you have to start saying no. Skunkworks is still busy place. Can't imagine what they're up to these days. Oh, good Lord. So for those not in the know, they believe that this is the kind of operation that if a downed spaceship ends up on U.S. soil, Skunkworks will be taking it apart to re-engineer it. They worked on the Black Hawk. They worked on the U-2. They worked on all of these top secret projects. And the clearance, again, you're going to have an easier time getting clearance for the FBI than you're going to work at Skunkworks. But this plumber could, and he could also get a gig for one night only to guard RFK. Funny thing, too. Why take him through the pantry? This doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Now, the narrative is this. There were so many people milling about. This is a party. They're celebrating that this dude just carried California. He's going to be the next president of the United States. They're stoked. So they're trying to avoid that crowd because it would be dangerous. And one person grabbed him by the coat sleeve and said, come through the back. You can avoid the crowd. Anybody want to take a guess who that dude was? Huh? And by the way, witnesses out the wazoo. This isn't one guy that said, hey, I saw him do that. No, everybody saw him do that. Well, that would be the security guard, Caesar. Does this smell right? Okay. He was shot in the back of the head, but the shooter was 6 feet in front of him. That alone, you could go, that's reasonable doubt. Why is Sirhan Sirhan in prison? But now start adding more. The gun that they fired the ballistics on didn't match the serial number of the gun that Sirhan Sirhan actually owned. Well, there's some reasonable doubt. No? How about this? They were able to test these bullets. Now, it wasn't as great a technology back then as we have now, but they determined that the bullets that went into him were probably not fired by that gun. What they could say is it was fired by a .22 of the same manufacturing, because back then the barrels weren't so unique as they are today. Today, they're designed to help us track down shooters. Back then, they were not, but they could say it came from the same style gun, but the lands and grooves didn't match up. However, they only recovered 8 bullets, right? Where are the rest of them? Because there were 13 fired according to the audio re-enhancement, and the 70 witnesses that listened to this thing all said, no, wait, it was way more than 8 shots. Those bullets were dug out of the walls by the LAPD, but none of them ended up in evidence. One of the bullets that they claim hit Kennedy was marked by the forensic cat that did all of the ballistics on it with an X. The X was not Kennedy. There was a different marking for each individual. But they showed up and said, well, here's one. And they actually got caught in the process. The guy was like, this has got an X on it. Why is there an X on this one? Nothing about this made any sense. Yet Sirhan Sirhan goes to prison. On his 17th attempt, or his 15th attempt, he's had 17. On his 15th attempt, he was granted parole, right? Granted parole. His parole plan said he's going to move in with his brother. He said, I'm going to move in with my brother. He said that I could live with him. So from a parole standpoint, because you guys probably haven't been to prison, that is familial ties, right? Family ties is a huge thing. Also, he didn't have any record in prison of being a douche, right? He didn't do anything wrong in there that pissed people off. So they finally grant him parole. Step in Newsom. Yeah, that's right. Newsom steps in and says, no, I'm not letting him out. He vetoes the parole. Vetoes it. That's odd, right? That's okay. He'll get it the next time. The same board, same people. They're not going to not give it to him the next time. And eventually this guy's going to, not veto it, right? No, when they came back the next time, they shot him down. He hadn't had a write-up. Nothing had changed. Was still moving in with his brother. But on the next go around, they said, no, you're not a good candidate. Does that smell right to you? Keep adding all of this crap that doesn't smell right. Last night, I touched on the fact that the people from the Weatherman Underground and the people from the Black something Liberation Army, I can't remember what it was. That wasn't the Black Panthers. It's the Black Liberation Front or something. 9 of these people killed 2 cops and a security guard in the Brinks job. All but one has been pardoned. Pardoned by Clinton, pardoned by Andrew Cuomo. They love pardoning people, right? Especially criminals. They love it. It's that feel-good thing, providing those people were left-wing lunatics. Sirhan Sirhan ain't going to get a pardon. He's going to die in prison. Now, why did he pull the trigger? I don't know. There's really no way to tell. But I read Chaos, which is a great book. It's Manson and the CIA. And, people go, these are conspiracy theories. That cat has so many footnotes. That dude did so much research that it's really hard to argue his case. Charles Manson, when he was out on parole, got caught with drugs and a gun. Let me tell you how federal paper works and how state paper works. That's called a new crime. That new crime sends you back. So you go back for whatever your parole period was. Plus, they book you on the gun and the drugs. But they decided they'd let him go. Career criminal. They decided they would let him go. He was also going to a little clinic in Haight-Ashbury where they were dosing people up with acid. That clinic was run by the Central Intelligence Agency. This was part of the MK Ultra program. And MK Ultra, by the way, isn't debatable. This is a fact, right? What was the cat's name? Richard Helms, the head of the CIA, right around 1970, 73 in that time. They started to investigate all of this stuff. So he did what any solid employee of the government would do, and he shredded everything. Shredded it. And then he went and testified that he did it. He said, I did it to protect the names of the people that were part of the experiments. These people didn't know they were part of the experiment. Wrap your dome around that. By the way, this is not speculation. We've paid them off. One guy got 900 grand. The Canadians have paid off a couple because we were doing this in multiple places. But we were giving LSD to people that didn't want it. And I don't know if you've ever tripped on acid, but normally they measure the amount they put on that paper in micrograms, or mics, as the druggies call it, right? 100 mics, 150 mics, you start getting above that, you're really getting into a buzz. How about 0.5 gram to 1 gram of LSD? All of the people that got these experiments on them went nuts. A couple of them committed suicide. They gave these people way too much acid, right? Way too much acid. And what they were trying to do was what they called virtual driving, which has nothing to do with an automobile. They wanted the ability to make somebody go out and do whatever the hell they wanted. And they picked random people. What did it? Well, one woman in Canada went in for postpartum depression, right? And she got victimized. Another woman went in while pregnant, and they dosed the hell out of her. Her kid's not right. They had to settle with him, or they tried to. The government said, sorry, it's only for the victims of MK Ultra. Like that kid ain't a victim. People say, I'm shocked that you that you left America. I'm shocked people can stay. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not. I love my country, but I don't trust the government as far as I could throw a Chevy. This conspiracy theory isn't a theory. You can blow off every single thing I just said. I promise, right? Just read the autopsy report. And then know that the 77 witnesses that they interviewed and took statements of all agreed on a couple of things. One of which was Sirhan was never closer than 2 feet away, and only one cat said that. The rest of them put it between 3 to 6 feet, and a couple of people said as far away as 8. Now, eyewitness accounts are notoriously inaccurate. Distances could be screwed up, all kinds of stuff. The stippling on the back of the guy's ear that looks like he got hit with a can of black Krylon spray paint, that's a little bit less ambiguous. You feel me? Okay. All of them at least agreed he was standing in front of them. Do you want to hear their explanation? He turned to shake hands with somebody, and that got him shot behind the opposite ear. Logical. But see, it doesn't matter if you're not going to put on a defense. And they didn't. There was no defense for this guy. And the only thing that saved him was he was getting the gas chamber. But then they decided to repeal that, same thing that saved Manson from going to the gas chamber. So Sirhan's got commuted to a life sentence with the eligibility for parole. He's 81 years old. This guy's not a threat to anybody on planet Earth. But they're never going to let him out. He's going to die in prison. And he didn't shoot that man. And the reason he shot at that man doesn't have a lot to do with him. Have you ever met someone that says, I went into the hospital for 3 months, and then the hospital tells you he was there, took 2 stitches, and was sent home after an hour and a half? Those are really on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Now, you can say, well, he could be bullshitting. There's no way to tell because there really isn't anything to back that up. The hospital records do only show he was there for an hour and a couple of minutes. They stitched him up and sent him on his way. So how do we know he's telling the truth? Well, we don't. You know what we do know, though? He disappeared off of the face of the planet for about 3 months right before the shooting. He reappeared just in time to take a gig at the Ambassador Hotel. That, to me, seems a little suspicious. Everybody in there in the family said once he fell off that horse, he was never the same again. He joined you can call it whatever you want. It's an esoteric society. You can call it a cult. You can call it whatever you want. The Rosicrucians. And he would go to work and try to hypnotize the people at work. During his breaks, he would try to hypnotize himself. This does not sound to me like a normal thing, right? But if you've been getting played with by the people at the Central Intelligence Agency and their fat bastard guy that was using hypnosis to bang women, who said, I programmed Sirhan. A CIA agent said, I was there when they killed JFK. He called him mother effer. And I was there when they got the younger one. There are so many people that have said in public that they had something to do with this. And the government just smooths on like it didn't happen. And if you ask 99% of Americans who shot RFK, they say Sirhan. I assure you he didn't. He may have tried to, but they had him ready to take the fall. Sound familiar? Right? Put a guy up in that book suppository, let him fire out the window. Who cares if he hits him? We're going to have someone else somewhere else, right? Grassy knoll. He'll do the shooting, and then we can just put it on the patsy. But they did a really good job with the first one because somebody then smokes this guy in the basement of a jail. I've been transported from a lot of jails. Sadly, that's just kind of the truth. I can't imagine someone getting into the basement to shoot me. These are some really secure places. And you go, yeah, it was a long time ago. This guy shot the president. You don't think? Anyway, JFK is a whole other subject. You can argue both sides of JFK. You cannot argue both sides of RFK. The man had almost contact wounds on the back of his head. He was shot by a guy who ran out of the country and died in a place where Lockheed Martin has a ton of connections from all of the stuff that it has done over the years. Seems like a great choice for a spook, right? A spy that's looking to disappear. A spy who was a plumber by day, worked at Lockheed Martin by night, and pulled security gigs for a friend just when RFK is in town. People, this stinks. This stinks. And it's not like It's not like every other conspiracy theory that we have, right? You don't have to suspend your disbelief. Sinstar, good to see you, man. You don't have to go, I wonder if this is possible. You just have to read the autopsy report. The perfect autopsy, right? The perfect autopsy. And you know what their take was? They said the guy that did the autopsy was power hungry and he wanted to claim all these things. The room was full of professionals. Nobody argued with him. But if you bullshit enough, if you just keep repeating the BS, people will just start believing it. They'll just start believing it. So I'll tell you something else that's interesting. Times have changed. Now you can take a bullet that is 90% disintegrated and you can put it under this little camera and AI will rebuild that bad boy. And it will tell you where the lands and the grooves and all of the markings on that come from. Oh, yeah. See, we have got imaging now that can do things with bullets that you can't imagine. So why haven't they done it with his? Doesn't that seem odd? Nobody wants to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole. And the reason that they don't is this one will lead to his brothers. I promise you. These are the same people that killed the Kennedys, both of them. And I'm sitting here railing on it. And I'm not normally somebody that stands up for a lot of Democrats. But now what they're doing is they're painting RFK Jr. as a lunatic. He's a conspiracy nut. Take a look at the conspiracy theories that he's talked about. I'll tell you what, if you're batting 600, 380 will get you into the Hall of Fame. If you're batting 600 or 700, he was right about the vaccine not stopping the spread of COVID. Like, he nailed a lot of the stuff he's talking about. He was one of the first guys to really rail on red dye and the fact that it could cause cancer. And recently, they've come out and admitted that too. So every time they use the pejorative of you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a tinfoil hat wearer, why the hell wouldn't you be? Honest to God, why wouldn't you be? They've been lying to us since we became a country. We've gone over some of these before. The boys at Pearl Harbor, we knew they were getting bombed, and we just sat back and let them die. That's our country. It happened. It's not debatable. It's fact. That alone should go, man, maybe we can't trust these people. Like, this could be a problem. The JFK assassination, I'm sorry, it's debatable. There are people that say it's a lone gunman, and you know what? As much as there's a lot of stuff that looks really bad, some of it can be explained. It sure as hell looks like Kennedy got shot from the front, right? But they'll explain how when when the bullet goes in, it causes such a concussion that very often heads go in the opposite direction. Like, it actually goes into the bullet because all of that energy goes to the front of the skull and fires it back and it throws the head back. So, okay, fine. I don't buy that shit, but at least it's an argument, right? Find me an argument for RFK. Even the people that say Sirhan is the shooter, they'll say, we're not exactly sure how he was able to shoot from the back of the head with all the witnesses saying this. They don't say, here's the answer. They listed Caesar as a person of interest. Well, he got out of Dodge, right? I'm sure he got that warning way ahead of time. In fact, everybody who was a person of interest. The polka dot dress woman. They started putting out things in the press. They say an estimated 13 women showed up to say, I very well might have been that person in the polka dot dress. They didn't take down one of their names. Do you find that odd? Do you find that odd? There was also a woman who, a composite sketch artist, did a drawing. This woman was absolutely fantastic. She looks like she's Latin American. And they interviewed her and she was like, I'm the most observant person in the world. This is the person that they kept trying to say, you didn't see this woman. She's like, not only did I see her, I can describe her, how her eyebrows were. She had the most unusual nose I've ever seen. This woman was a beast. So somebody from a newspaper, because cops don't give a shit, but somebody from the newspaper said, I will pay for a composite sketch to be done. They took that sketch and 10 others and showed them to the other witnesses that said they saw the polka dotted dress woman. Every one of them went, that one right there, that woman, it's her. A woman who matched that description almost perfectly committed suicide 3 weeks after the shooting, after she had been told she was a person of interest. By the way, if you hear committed suicide, or if you hear died from suspicious causes, just put CIA in there. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. They flooded our country with dope. They were the reason for the crack epidemic. They were the reason for the opioid epidemic. And you know what? We keep funding these sons of bitches. For real. This is messed up. It really is. It's messed up. And you can just keep going down these rabbit holes. And every time somebody shows up that just has everything you need, they die. Their car goes off the road, they hit a tree, catches fire. You know, every time there's somebody that just seems to have it dialed in, you can almost bet the farm they're about to join RFK and JFK. And I've said many times, you know what? 2 people can keep a secret or 3 people can keep a secret if 2 are dead. Nobody kept a secret in this. This one literally proves my point. So many jackwagons that were involved in this bragged about it, including Richard Nixon's kid in front of witnesses at a party. He went in and hugged a guy and said, that dude's dead. And the guy replied to him, they should be calling you vice president. All of this stuff is easily looked up. What the hell's happening? This happened in 1968. It's all good, right? It's all good because our country will tell us what the truth is, and you just have to swallow that crap like a bad tasting pill. And the truth will set no one free. Go read the autopsy, right? Just read the autopsy and explain to me how a shooter standing in front of somebody delivers the wounds that happened to RFK. This is the most clear cut of a conspiracy, not theory, a fact. And if you're thinking to yourself, why the hell was there no Secret Service there? We didn't do that then. Isn't that amazing? We didn't start giving Secret Service to people that were running for president until the horse had left the barn, so to speak. It was the RFK assassination that caused them to start sending the Secret Service out with these individuals. When you have money to tell people to look the other way, I guess that's how you do it. Well, you scare the shit out of them too, Jeremy Fowler. I mean, in all honesty, you scare the crap out of them. And there have been, not so much on this case, but on others, people who on their deathbed said, I wasn't going to tell anybody. They whacked the president. You think I'm going to come out and tell people in the press what's up? They killed the president. I'm pretty sure they could kill me. And they could make it look like a drug overdose, or they can make it look like a car crash or suicide, or you left the gas on in your house. These are people that kill people for a living. I can understand why people that were there wanted to keep their mouths shut. But at RFK, nobody kept their mouths shut. For real. They came out and said, this is what I saw. This is what I heard. And then the police systematically told those people that they were crazy and that you didn't hear that. And you're being disrespectful to Robert Kennedy. To say that you heard a woman say, I killed him, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. And it's funny because when you listen to the audio, the woman says, hey, stop yelling at me. He said, I'm sorry, but I feel very passionate about this as well. She said, that's fine. Stop yelling at me. I thought, I'd love to shake that woman's hand. I would love to shake that woman's hand. But did her story get into the official reports? No. No. The polka dotted dress woman was just written off as BS, even though everybody in there saw her running with another man right after the shooting. If that was all they saw, you could go, wow, I mean, guns get fired and people run. Yeah, but they usually don't jump up and down celebrating, yelling, we killed him, we killed him. That's a little odd. That's a little odd. Now, the connection to MK Ultra is a theory, but it's a theory with a hell of a lot of things that make you go, huh? Like the head psychiatrist from MK Ultra claiming I programmed Sirhan. That one will give you a little pause, right? Please do me a favor. Don't believe anything, right? Don't believe me. Don't believe anything. But go read that autopsy report. I promise you, it'll only take you a few minutes. And there are some photos in there. You're going to see the back of the man's ear. And it looks like, honestly, like somebody took a can of black spray paint and went, shh. It's just black and there's stippling right where this like horseshoe shape where it went in, right? The wound was down, firing up, and from behind. Sirhan is standing in front, right? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I don't know, man. It's heartbreaking to me. Honest to God, it's heartbreaking to me because I grew up waving the flag and believing that we were the shining city on the hill. And I just don't believe that anymore. I believe we're bullies. I believe that the people that run the country don't get elected. And I think that we're warmongering pieces of shit. We wanted to spend money in Vietnam And we didn't want black people climbing up just yet. And I think that that's why RFK is dead. RFK Sr. is dead. And when the son of the assassinated man doesn't believe the assassin did it, don't you have to take another look? Why not put the bullets under some AI? And then let's see if that gun, that they tested even. Again, the serial number doesn't even match. How shoddy is that? And how does the lawyer not say, hey, Your Honor, because the lawyer was in there to make sure that Sirhan got convicted. And for that, he didn't have to go to jail and he didn't lose his bar license. Big ass red bow on it, tied up beautifully. Everybody got exactly what they wanted, right? Except for the Kennedy family. It's pretty nasty. And I'll tell you something. I'm definitely don't lean left. But if they were alive today, I would have voted for both of them. That's probably why they're dead. Unfortunately, you can't mess with the people that are making the ridiculous money. And the military-industrial complex, you have any idea how much money got spent on nukes from the time RFK and his brother got shot? They wanted to get rid of the arms race immediately. Trillions upon trillions of dollars that went into the pockets of all kinds of crony capitalism. And yeah, I could go on a rant. I think I'll keep this to an hour, but I'm going to do another show on this, and I'm going to bring all of the stuff in for those of you who aren't going to go and look at the autopsy stuff. I'll bring it here, but there's a couple of others that we're going to be talking about in the near future. I'm tired of being lied to, and you guys seem somewhat open to it, so we'll talk about it. Most of them are conspiracy theories, and we're going to just have to work our way through, and you can make your decision one way or the other. There is no way in hell you can look at this autopsy and think this is a conspiracy theory. And why every president since Nixon didn't say, we got to open this up, man. This is BS. And why is Sirhan rotting in prison? Okay, he had a gun and he fired it. Yeah, he should go to prison. But I think he's probably done enough time. He didn't kill anybody. And I think we probably programmed him with a hell of a lot of LSD and some sleep deprivation. I think when he went to that hospital, he was there for 3 months. I think we did him dirty, like we did to so many other people. Keep in mind, MK Ultra, 129 victims of MK Ultra, and not one of them signed up for it. Not one of them knew they were going to be dosed with acid. I would kill you and 4 people to look just like you if you gave me dope like that without telling me about it. I don't find that crap funny in the slightest. And in the amounts they were giving it to these people, they were cooking their brain. It's disgusting. Take it from a guy that's done some acid. Absolutely disgusting. All right, people, between now and the next time I see you, don't believe anything. Please, don't believe anything. I'm Tommy. God bless. I'll see you on the next one. Have a good